So welcome everybody. I'm Sarah Beckman, Director of External Relations for the Balboa Park Conservancy. Thanks for joining us for Parkside Chats. This is our November edition. We're talking about 4 transformative projects in Balboa Park. We did have a last minute switch in our program just due to a family emergency, but we're super excited to welcome folks today. Our friends Steve Stopper and Vicki Estrada, representing the Save Starlight organization. They have a really visionary plan to share with us today. John Bolthouse from Friends of Balboa Park. The Carousel project is moving ahead and we want to hear an update and the exciting progress on that. We've got Jessica Hanson-York from the Mingei. I think that's going to be really exciting to hear about. I know progress is coming along, just being in the park and seeing the construction, great. And then a little bit later, we'll have my colleague, Jackie Higgins, talking about the revitalization of Botanical Building and Gardens. I'm sure all of you are eager for an update on that. We'll do some presentations, we'll follow that flow. And then once everyone's had a chance to present, we will do, I have some questions keyed up. I'll moderate a little panel conversation and then there'll be a chance, there is a Q&A function and also chat. And so my colleagues, Christine and Dylan, will be monitoring chat as well as Q&A to make sure that questions get addressed and we're able to excite you all and pique your curiosity and maybe answer questions that you've been burning up about Balboa Park. So with no further ado, Steve Stopper is going to start us off and I will let you share your screen and get the spotlight. Thank you so much.
Let Steve talk first so we can see his face bigger, and then I will go ahead and share my screen.
I don't know if we want to see my face any bigger, but anyway, hello everybody. Steve Stopper, Save Starlight founder. And the one thing that I really want to impress upon everybody, I know some people have heard me talk up and down about what we're doing and some have not heard too much about the different ideas we have for the Starlight mission. So this is one of them, but there are many. And I can only tell you this, that one of the things that's happened recently for us has been the idea of what the pandemic has brought in, has opened windows of what Starlight could be in terms of coming back and into play in that. And so we have almost doubled in size since March. And part of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people are seeing what this place can be. And so it's not your mother's My Fair Lady type of place anymore. It's going to be we'll do everything, circus, we'll do a bunch of different kinds of presentations, and we are open to any and all types of entertainment. Obviously the pandemic is slowing down things right now, but we're doing things right as we speak. We have Mara Elliott coming to tour tomorrow, and we're going to show her some of the stuff we're doing, and you'll see when we get this thing up and running, when things clear, it'll be a great benefit to the whole community. Okay, so with not much more on that, Vicki has one of the things we're talking about, which would be adjusting some of the things we could be doing. So Vicki, take it away.
Okay then, make sure you see my screen. You can see my screen? Or no?
Yep.
Yes? Okay.
We see it, looks good.
Okay, then I will proceed. Let's just get going. Clearly, you know, a lot of us grew up with Starlight and, you know, freezing when the airplanes came over. And I actually played piano there when I was 11 years old. Darrell Music Company used to have 101 pianos, and I actually did for a couple of years some recitals down there. So it just goes back a long way with me as well. The front, as you recall, was earlier this year, a tree fell down, right? A big eucalyptus tree, and kind of put a little dent in our front. That the city did a great job fixing that. And so what the vision is not the same old Starlight doing Broadway tunes, but being something a lot more flexible, a lot more diverse. And so we actually had some students from the New School help us out and do some simulations, what this might look like when people start to come. And here it is at night. And you'll see later, I'll show you a place where Steve has been doing some incredible lighting testing. So this is going to be really quite the place at night. And when the Palisades opens up, right? And right now there's little sticks there at the Palisades, but there's going to be lights on top of the Palisades. And when we start having food trucks and other activity, this is going to be quite the place. A couple other different views you can see here. If you can see my my arrow, we have a couple of different stages, not just the main stage. And you'll see here in a bit, we also have another stage behind the actual bowl itself. Here's the famous Steve Stopper playing a little bass guitar. And that's actually one of the things that we're looking at, is maybe once a month having a little gig during the daytime, and we can have people come and do karaoke. It's not just, again, a nighttime event. We see this being a lot more, of an 18-hour venue. I'm sorry, here's another view at nighttime. You can see the lighting we intend to be quite dramatic, and it's going to be a lot different than what you see today. Another close-up view. Now, here's what it looked like in 1935, of course. It was called the Ford Bowl, and the old Navy Hospital, which used to dominate. All that's left is Building 1, Building 8 over here, and then the chapel. But you can see how open it was. And back in 35, President's Way was not there. Gold Gulch actually went all the way through to downtown. But the basic form of the bowl was there, and it has changed over the years quite a bit. I'm not going to go through all the iterations. Here's what it looks like today. When the opera came in and started doing the quote unquote opera came in doing their summer shows, they needed the proper equipment to raise and lower curtains and so forth. And over the years, we were able to get some seats. The weeds are starting to come back, but little by little, we are cleaning this place up. If you've ever been down at the bottom looking up, that's what it looks like looking back up. So the basic venue is still there. It just needs a lot of work, which we have started to do. And here's the existing aerial photograph. Here's your restroom at the top. Here's your restroom at the bottom. As you will see shortly, not today, but when we open up, these bathrooms are going to be incredible. We got great tile work and great, toilets and so forth. I know great toilets, Vicki. What kind of toilets are those? But you will see. And a lot of the activity, that tree's gone now. Clearly, it kind of fell down and hit things. So let's look at what this vision is that we're talking about. Here's the existing building. Here's where these views were that I showed you a minute ago, this direction. And this quote unquote intimate area. I'll show you some images of that here in a bit. The lower level restroom would be renovated as well with a little entry foyer. Here at the top, we have that restroom that I just mentioned is almost done being renovated. Potentially, we can have a roof deck on top. We see a VIP area here, kind of overlooking what's going on. But as you will see, we're not talking about the same old seats. The front apron, with our ticket windows and back over here and concessions. The green room for any performers we might have, working with artists to come up with some very neat, unique fencing that is appropriate for the era of 1935 and fits in with our image, what's going on with the Starlight in the future. That big hill, the big slope you saw behind, right now it's just kind of a no man's land. There's not much there. We would like to convert that into a new drought tolerant garden, and maybe before any events, you'd be able to walk through and come back out. We don't necessarily see this thing fenced in all the time like it is now either. We would like to see it more open to the public. Now, one of the neat things, as I mentioned, on the backside of the stage, room for a smaller stage, smaller performances, because the topography begins to go back up on that green wall I showed earlier. Potentially big TV monitors, and we would like to have that as a green wall, green with plants, not just green with color. We've been working with the fire department. They want new access this way, which we can do with some walkways going along, heading toward the north. So we do need some, ADA improvements from this whole area going back down. It's a little bit too steep, so we have to work on that. But essentially, here's the plan. All right. Rather than have the seats, and you see a cross section here in a minute that you have today. And this was actually an idea that got started before COVID, but it just kind of worked out perfectly with the social distancing and people coming and You want to bring a blanket and bring 4 chairs, long chairs, almost kind of like the summer pops in the old days back in the lawn area in the back. You bring your picnic and you kind of kick back, and you have essentially 3 different levels. If you're in a wheelchair, you enter here, you go back down this ramp, enter here, go back down this ramp, all the way down to the bottom. And this will be some sort of artificial turf with some distinction between, so you'll be able to kind of see the levels. If anybody ever seen a Boise State football game, you know that they have blue artificial turf. I'm not saying it'll be quite that blue, but I think we have some possibilities to make this a lot more exciting. So I mentioned earlier the intimate space. On the left, this is a gym in the background. Here's what it looks like now. And if you go out there today, up here where my arrow is, this whole thing, to kind of help carry some of the wiring, we call it the trough of technology, as Steve came up with it. You know, we're painting, we're fixing, we're making a lot of technical advances. We're going to put up television screens, and this is what it looks like now. But this is what it might begin to look like. Here's the you know, a lot of some color up above. We're looking at plants, and we're looking at different wiring in this trough, as I mentioned, different lighting, I mean, and potentially tables and chairs, a lot of possibilities, public art being displayed, looking the other direction, and that little stage in the middle. So again, this is something that could be open entirely during the daytime, as well as somebody wants to come and have lunch and sit on some of these terraces. At this point, you know, that might be something that might be able to happen. But you can see quite a bit different than what exists today. A lot more excitement, a lot more color. You can see some of the TV screens, people coming and enjoying the space, whether or not there's a performance going to happen later or not. And there's the armored car where all the money that we're going to make is going to go. I'm sorry, that's a food truck. At any rate, here's the planner on the left that has already been planted by the city, and working with Charlie Daniels at the city, they've come up with a nice entryway for us. So enough of these simulations. Now you're going to say, well, Vicki, has this been done before? It has, to different levels of detail. These terraces are quite a bit smaller. Okay, you can see there's a stage out here and quite open. If you look at Humphreys, and you know, out in Shelter Island, that's flat. There are no terraces. These are a little bit bigger, a little bit steeper. And you can see here, these are actually smaller terraces, but you can see people bring their chairs and kind of hang out. This one out in Phoenix is a lot bigger, the terraces, and they're not nearly as big of a vertical difference between them. You can see on the left, that's almost the kind of thing we're talking about in terms of distancing between people. And you can see here the whole variation. So what am I talking about? Here's a cross section. Here are our existing seats. We would take out the seats, we would fill it in, and we would put some a retaining wall here. Remember that ramp I mentioned to you earlier that goes between level to level to level, would be built here. And this of course would go up and down accordingly, but we see people coming, bringing their blankets and their chairs and having some, looking back at this plan over here, you can see some, you know, some drought tolerant planting on the outside. There's no way I think this is going to end up being lawn, because it would be incredibly difficult to maintain. But I don't want it to be a dull space. We see lots of real green, as I mentioned, up against the wall up here at the stage as well. We may be raising the stage a wee bit so we can have some a better sight distance. I still have to tweak some of the angles and so forth to make sure we have sight distance for everybody. And no reason to go into all of the grades. You know, I did work out all the grades here, unless somebody has an extraordinarily technical question. But here's a, you know, pretty picture what it might look like with people in blankets and chairs watching a performance. And there could be one going on back here in the back, and there could be one going on underneath at this level as well. So with that, I'll leave it at this image for now, and Steve and I are available for any questions. Steve, do you want to close with anything? Muted.
That was a good thing to be muted. I had a lot of Okay, so either way, one of the things that we are doing, and it's not in the presentation, is we are upping the technical level of things here, including streaming. So in that upper area, we have PTZ cameras and a thing called a TriCaster, you're able to do virtual sets. And the big thing is, I do believe being able to stream. We have the San Diego Circus Center coming in this Sunday just to do a demo of what they can do. We can't do any events right now, but the being able to stream is very, very important. And we're going to be able to do that like nobody's business, including with multi-camera setups and things like that. So I do believe even if it's going to be a long time before true performances with a seated audience can happen, we're still able to do things and stream it out. And I think we've got a great space to do that. And she was right about the idea of trying to open it up to people. I do believe we can have a thing where people could come in during the day and just come into the theater and sit and have your lunch and enjoy the actual space as it is. And so I'm really excited about that possibility too.
Okay, we are here for your questions. Do we just answer the questions in the chat ourselves, or do you moderate, Sarah?
I think what would be helpful right now is to do some of it in the chat, and let's move on to let friends do their presentation, and then some of these questions I might revisit.
We do them all. We do them all at the end. Okay, got it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just love that. That is the vision for the future. It's so inspiring, you two. Let's go to John. John, are you ready?
Ready to go, Sarah, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks. My name is John Bolthouse with Friends of Balboa Park. We're the owners and operators of the Balboa Park Carousel. I want to thank the folks at the Conservancy for inviting us tonight. And it's a pleasure to be with my colleagues here in the park. I'm here to tell you a little bit about, hopefully you can see my screen share here, the Balboa Park Carousel. So I'm going to zip through this. Lots of great visuals here. This is the Balboa Park Carousel. If we don't want to make an assumption that everyone knows about the carousel and where it's located, it's right next to the entry to the zoo. Certainly, if you are a lifelong lover of Balboa Park, you will have enjoyed time at the carousel. This was a picture taken just the other day. So this is a menagerie carousel, and menagerie carousel is one that, unlike so many other carousels around the world, it has more than just horses. It has animals of all types, lots of different types of horses in different types of poses and styles. But we also have a tiger, we've got a stork, we got 2 cats actually. We actually have some benches, and we have a total of 58 different unique rides on the Balboa Park Carousel, including one of the only original mythical creatures on a still original on a carousel in the United States. Actually, one of only 7 sea monsters in the entire United States that's still original from its 1910 manufacture. By the way, all of these carousel rides are were hand carved originally, and we've been restoring them over the years. And of course, it is a magnificent, wonderful attraction that kids of all generations have enjoyed. And we've actually had great grandparents who have come and shared this carousel with their great grandchildren who came when they were children. So it just tells you how endemic it is woven into our culture in our community fabric. The carousel also has one of the only original brass ring games where you go around in a circle and you try to grab the brass ring. And if you grab the brass ring, you get a free ride, as it says on the original sign right here from the 1920s. And here we go. He's just about to get it. This is an image of the original 1905 General Electric motor. The General Electric made these motors for carousels during the last century. And this is actually the original casing for the motor. We have it rebuilt approximately every 5 to 10 years, every 7 years, it's rebuilt. Just had it rebuilt a few years ago, and it is still clicking. They just don't make them like they used to. We also have a band organ, and a band organ is different from like a calliope. A calliope organ is effectively run by steam or some type of air component. This is run by sheet music, or it operates sheet music, much like your player pianos. This is an image of original sheet music that still runs through the band organ. little bit of background on its history. This is a 1910 Herschel Spillman carousel. What you're seeing in front of you here is a panel of the original artwork that brands the carousel. It was built in 1910 in North Tonawanda, New York, which is in upstate New York. And the Balboa Park Carousel actually was not always called the Balboa Park Carousel. It actually has a very interesting history. It made its way around the country to Balboa Park in a roundabout way. First, it went to Luna Park in Los Angeles, and then it went to Coronado. You're looking at a picture of what is today the Balboa Park Carousel in Coronado at Tent City, in the Tent City area of Coronado along the Silver Strand, effectively just right down the street of the Hotel Del today. Now you're looking at an image of pre-1968 where the carousel was located. If you can't see it, it's right there. And this is at the very end of El Prado. This is before El Prado was closed to vehicular traffic. Park Boulevard was tweaked a little bit in its orientation. But when El Prado was closed and the B. Evenson fountain was installed, they had to make room for it. This is actually a picture of its location at the end of El Prado with the prior image. This is the little bitty ticket booth. That is the one that's existing in the site right now is a reproduction of that original ticket booth. It sure does look uncomfortable, right? Well, in the heat of the summer, it actually is, but it's a very whimsical little part of the carousel experience. This is a very low resolution image, but this is taken in 1968 when the carousel all together, the building and the carousel inside the building, was lifted up on effectively a giant furniture dolly and rolled down the promenade from its location, what is today approximately where the B. Evenson fountain is, down to its current location today, right there near the entry of the zoo in between Spanish Village and right next to the miniature railroad. This image was taken in 2016 before Friends of Balboa Park, the carousel. This is an image I was proud to be able to sit down with the prior owner, Bill Steen, who had owned and operated the carousel for 40 years. He loved the carousel enough that he wanted to ensure that when he was ready to sell it, he wanted to make sure that it stayed in Balboa Park and certainly stayed in San Diego. He is nothing but a pure gentleman and a park lover and a great San Diegan. He actually donated a pretty significant amount of the value of the carousel to us and helped us come up with a payment plan in our fundraising to pay for the acquisition of the carousel. And of course, it's been enjoyed by generations. Here's better days pre-COVID when we actually had it open to the public. Lots of great fun. We also were giving tours to the public. I'll come back around to this gentleman here, Mr. Brown, in a subsequent slide. And so this was taken just the other day, very similar image to what it looked like pre-COVID. We had, when we took over the carousel in 2017, we started making a number of modest improvements, slowly but surely making some improvements, some enhancements, some retrofitting to modernize some of the elements, but mostly preservation efforts. And then COVID hit. You probably appreciate this picture. So the Balboa Park Carousel was compelled to be closed to the public, much like many of the museums in Balboa Park. But unlike the other institutions in Balboa Park, the carousel, being an amusement ride, was not allowed and still is not allowed to reopen indefinitely. There are no reopening criteria effectively by the state of California. When that time comes and we're all comfortable that it's safe to reopen, we will be reopening. But in the meantime, our carousel manager, Bill Brown, who has been an employee at the carousel since he was 16 years old in 1972, you do the math, he's now the carousel manager. He went to work during the closure. We decided, you know what, let's take advantage of the closure and let's make the improvements that we need to make on the carousel during this downtime. We have retrofitted all of the bulbs to LED lights, and they look just absolutely extraordinary. Cannot wait until it's open to the public so you can see these improvements. New bulbs and new sockets that had long been inoperable. We are actually doing a comprehensive electrical upgrade for the entire site. Some pictures there. We're doing a lot of carpentry work. This is, trust me, these folks are social distance. This was actually taken about 6 months ago. But a lot of carpentry work and repairs around the carousel. It had been a long time since some of the woodwork had been addressed. Repairs and painting of the large barn doors, repairs to the original wood, the 1910 wood on the deck. And also Bill and his staff have been doing a restoration work on the actual rides. Now there are 52 rides. It takes a long time, it takes a few months to do each ride. But what this is enabling us to do is to teach our staff and our volunteers, when we're able to have volunteers there, a skill. And here's one of our volunteers working on one of the 2 frogs. And this is the result. I'll go back and take a look at the difference. This is before the coats of polyurethane were put on, after it was sanded and repainted. And there's what it looks like today. So how are we able to make this happen, right? Well, Friends of Balboa Park is in the midst of a capital campaign, a $3 million capital campaign. As you can see from our thermometer here, we are getting pretty darn close. And it has enabled us to first, phase 1, make the purchase of the carousel, acquire the carousel from the prior owner, Bill Steen. And now all the subsequent funds we've been able to secure from the public have enabled us to do all the work that you're seeing right now. And we do have a way to recognize our donors. Here is, we got our brass plaques right next to each of the rides. And just so our public is aware, there are still ride sponsorship opportunities. I think there are 12 rides left, and there are a few horses left amongst them. We also have benches that are available, and these are the original benches back in the day that are up on the deck of the carousel. And this is an example of, if you're interested in sponsoring the brass ring, it's too late. The Hazards, the wonderful family, have sponsored the brass ring. Now, what does the future hold for the carousel? Well, first and foremost, we want to reopen it, right? I think we all want to get back to some sense of normalcy. Certainly, we're going to do it safely. But in the meantime, we do have a pretty ambitious vision for the future, and that does include taking into account the promenade plan. This is a plan view of the promenade plan that's in the master plan, Balboa Park's master plan. And you can see it shows in the red up near the top the current location of the carousel. And then when this plan is completed, it will actually tuck back into where next to Spanish Village and where the miniature railroad is right now. So we're looking forward to working with the Parks and Recreation Department to see that dream come through. And that's just a little bit. It is a tiny sampling of the great story of the 1910 Balboa Park Carousel.
Thank you, John. I think we have a number of history buffs on this call and really appreciate that background. That gives a lot of context. And then I really loved tying in the future of the promenade. We're going to talk a little bit later among the group about the vision, how this fits into a vision for the park. Next up is Jessica with the Mingei, Jessica Hansen York. We welcome you, and I welcome you to share your screen and talk about the project that you're in the thick of.
Great, thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, John and Steve and Vicki. It's so exciting to hear about all of your projects, and it's great that we're all taking this time to really dream, think, plan ahead, and kind of get into the nitty-gritty of making some of these changes happen, and we're really happy to be part of that at Mingei. I'm going to share a little bit of the overview and background on our significant transformation plans at Mingei, walk you through just a few of the real highlights, the most exciting aspects of the project, of which there are many, and then I'll wrap up by letting you know where we're at in the progress and with construction and when we plan to reopen. So I'm going to quickly jump through a couple of the slides here. Let's see, there we go. And I want to just kind of take a step back. This project has been 5 years in the making for Mingei. Like so many projects, we started off just wanting to fix and replace a few things. Our floors, our lighting grid, maybe add a classroom that we'd always wanted. But with the help of our architect, we realized we had an opportunity to remake the building for a changing audience, changing expectations for museums, and our changing needs as a mature organization. So we really took a step back, did a lot of assessment, looking around at the sector, and set up 4 aspirations for this project. One was to really open up the museum, really quite literally, towards the park, to start kind of blurring the boundaries between indoors and outdoors, between different spaces in the museum. We had a few historic elements in the building that had been unused for decades, and really trying to reclaim some of those lost spaces in the historic House of Charm. And then finally, we wanted to add some landscape back to the park, and we saw some opportunities to do that and a way to make a difference in that area. So just moving through, we'll start with the plaza level of the museum. You can see on the left here the floor plan of the museum, and all of these yellow arrows that I'm running over with my cursor here, those are all both on the east side and then over here on the west side in Alcazar Garden. Those are all going to be major entrances into the museum. We've previously had one front door, and we're going to have opened up so many new access points and make it really easy for people to find us, come in, move through the space like a concourse, and to create what we're calling a living room for the park. People can come in through the west side at Alcazar Garden. They can come in off the Plaza de Panama. On that plaza level, we'll have a sit-down bistro, a walk-up coffee bar, our retail store, Shop Mingei, which is so popular and loved, and we'll always have art on display, an installation of objects from our permanent collection that tell the story about our mission and our museum. Places for people to sit, to gather, to enjoy their time, no charge, to come in and move through and experience this level of the building. Oh, also restrooms. We'll have restrooms that are accessible. And we're making the move to have all gender neutral restrooms, individual restrooms for visitors, which feels like a nice step forward. I'm going to just skip past these. So here we're looking at 2 renderings. The first is, you see this kind of amphitheater area, which will be part of the plaza level of the museum, a space to gather, orient yourself before you begin your journey through Mingei. And then you can see a staircase leading up, and you can see a figure there looking up at our Chihuly chandelier. For those of you who've been at Mingei before, you know the Chihuly is an iconic part of the museum, a significant piece in our collection. And what we're showing here is this stairwell is going to be in the tower of the House of Charm. And we're going to reinstall the Chihuly chandelier inside the tower, which at this point in construction is really starting to take shape. This is going to be just a stunning venue to show off this art piece. And we're really looking at it as a circulation as experience. You're walking up the stairs to get from one point to another, but the journey is going to be beautiful and memorable. And it's a way to restore this important historic element of the building. We are going to add that classroom that we wanted for so long. In fact, we're adding an entire education center, and you can see a rendering of the classroom here, which will be big enough to seat 35 students and also have its own entrance off of Alcazar Garden. Here you can see a rendering of our expanded gallery space, and we will be gaining some important space to do what we do, which is to show art. We're really excited, and all of our curated exhibitions will now be on the second level of the museum, which will have paid admission. Also on the second level of the museum, the gallery level, we are going to relocate our library. You know, like many of the museums in the park, our library has been hidden from our public, but we're bringing it back into view. The library will become an important part of the public area on the gallery level and accessible to anyone who pays admission to come in. And we're going to use the opportunity to install some of the beautiful pieces of Nakashima furniture from our collection into this space. We will have many new spaces in the building for people to gather. Here's a rendering of our new boardroom, but we'll have a new theater, new terraces, lots of great new space for events and parties when we can all gather again after COVID. This is a quick layout of what's going to be our collaborative workspace on the lower level. Those of us who work in the park know that space is hard to come by, and we had to really think about making the most of the footprint that we had in the House of Charm. So we're reorienting all of the staff work space so that we can professionalize our own operations more significantly and find new ways for the staff to collaborate together. So one of the most exciting elements of the renovation is reopening the terraces, which are above the arcades on the north and east sides of the building. You can see them there outlined in red where my cursor is here. These are gorgeous spaces, and there's a rendering on the right of the terrace that will be on the south side. These are just, we found historic photos from 1915 of people standing on these terraces, and our architect, Jennifer Luce, just knew we had to find a way to open them up. They have beautiful views of the Plaza de Panama, and the one here on the north looks down the Prado, views of the California Tower, excuse me. Such a beautiful spot. We're so excited about opening these areas. And there we have at night. Fireworks. Now, if you've driven by the site at all, you probably have gotten a glimpse of the space that will become our new theater. And this is the one place we're adding square footage. It's where the loading dock used to be, and the loading dock was not particularly useful. And our wonderful and generous co-tenants at the Old Globe and the San Diego Art Institute were in agreement that none of us would miss much by giving up the loading dock. So we're turning it into a theater space, kind of a multi-purpose theater space. You're looking at a side view here, and here's a rendering of what it'll look like from the inside with a beautiful 35-foot glass wall that's going to be looking out onto Palm Canyon. I think you're seeing it take shape if you drive into the Alcazar parking lot at any point now. And here's a vision of what it will look like when it's done. You can see on the roof of this space, we have a courtyard that's taking shape, which is where we're adding some new outdoor space to the park adjacent to the Plaza de Panama. And this will all be landscaped out here, amphitheater space, and that glass wall will open up so that we can create some seamless experience between the indoors and the outdoors. Here's a view of what that courtyard is going to look like. This will be accessible just coming right in through the plaza level. We're hoping to install another significant piece from our art collection. This bronze piece on the wall here is from the artists Jackson and Ella Marie Woolley. It's been installed on a building that Mingei used to own up in Escondido. We recently removed it from that site. It's being cleaned and conditioned and repaired and ready for reinstallation here for everyone to enjoy it. Here's a vision of how we might use the space in the evening. We have a great big wall that would be well suited for projections and movie night. And here's a photo of our executive director, Rob Seidner, our two capital campaign chairs, Maureen King and John Cyber, and our architect, Jennifer Luce. We are also, like the Friends of Balboa Park, still fundraising for this project. This is a nearly $55 million project. We're closing in at the $40 million mark, still actively fundraising, and as you've probably seen, have not slowed down on construction. We've been really fortunate during COVID to be able to keep moving. We're working with Leighton Construction. As of now, we're hoping to receive a conditional permit of occupancy by March and just start moving back into the building. while they finish up some of the last remaining work on the tower piece. And then we are hoping to reactivate the building and reopen it to the public, tentatively as of now, in June of 2021. And there'll be so much to share with the public. We're really just so excited. We've been closed for a couple of years now and are so anxious to get back to welcoming the public through our doors. So I'll be happy to answer any questions when we get to that portion, and thanks everyone.
Thanks so much, Jessica. That's truly a transformative project. And I think getting even those more up-to-date renderings for me, because I've seen the booklet and all that, but that's, it's really getting me excited for 2021. I would love to transition to my colleague, Jackie Higgins, to talk about our project, the Botanical Building and Gardens.
Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing this evening? This is such a wonderful overview of so many different projects. Thanks for putting this together, Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So thanks for everyone for joining us this evening. I wanted to just kind of give an update about the botanical building process and progress that we've been making. Some of this might be a little bit redundant for those of you that joined us at the Balboa Park Committee meeting. But I'm going to start with this image. This is an image from 1915 that actually Charlie Daniels shared with me. And when I saw this, it was just such a striking image to me because it really speaks to the grandeur of this building and how immensely important this building was as the centerpiece for the 1915 exposition. And knowing the building and looking at this picture, you can see there is a lot of that grandeur that has been lost over the last 100 years. And so that's what this, ultimately what this restoration project is meant to bring back. So, you know, this building is this focal point for horticulture and botany in the park, as well as within our whole community. This building has been memorable and has functioned in many different ways throughout the last 100 years. Some of you have probably remember seeing the pictures that Nancy Carroll Carter shows of the Navy during World War II, actually using this lily pond as training the troops for swimming. And some of the pictures that Nancy shows of the nurses using this area for rec areas. This is actually the historic pergola that once upon a time was on the western access for the Botanical Building grounds. And so this pergola will be reconstructed as part of the restoration project for the Botanical Building and Gardens project. As you saw in that first image, the building used to be surrounded by stucco arcades. And as part of the restoration, that is one of the important aspects that will be brought back to this building. So just kind of a refresher, this project was actually started back in 2016, which was before my time with the Conservancy, but it started with community conversations and public meetings, and the Conservancy, in collaboration with Parks and Recreation, decided that the restoration of Balboa Park's Botanical Building and Gardens would be the signature project for the Conservancy. So with that, what we heard from the community and from stakeholders through these public meetings was that we should be restoring the historic integrity of this building and city asset, and that the exhibits within and around this building should be at museum level of horticulture exhibits. The intention has been to recreate some historic circulation patterns within the building and around the building, and improve the circulation patterns as well to bring them up to current standards for ADA accessibility. The other focus of this project is also to do some programming within the Botanical Building we're looking at this project as the heart of horticulture, and to have this dedicated volunteer group that greets the park visitors as they enter the building. On the south side, there'll be this welcome gallery, and I'll show you renderings of that in a minute. And one of the other things I wanted to mention was that what we heard from the community was that there should be interpretive signage, there should be more opportunities for education, and we're able to do that through upgraded technology and state-of-the-art technology and best management practices. So this is the overall plan view from the concept plans that were put together back in 2016. So this shows you the footprint of the project. This is a rendering of the historic pergola as it would be reconstructed in this project. This just gives you a feel for the openness of the central rotunda when those circulation patterns are opened back up. And this is the welcome gallery, that dedicated volunteers that will be recruited and trained and will greet park visitors as they enter the Botanical Building. So as you guys probably know about, the state actually allocated $8.26 million to the restoration of this project. It was given directly to the city, and the phase 1 of this project is being run through a city capital improvement project process. So the Conservancy donated the 60% construction documents to the city back in December of 2019. And we've been working closely with the city engineering department and Parks and Recreation to move this project forward. So phase 1 of this project, which is the scope of the state funds that were allocated to this project, will repair and replace the structural elements of the footprint of the building. So that includes the wood, the steel, removal of some of the concrete encasements on the south side of the building to open up those circulation patterns and really recreate that grandeur of the steel trusses in the building. There's electrical upgrades that will be happening. So the building will actually have lights in the evening. So it won't necessarily have to be shut at 4 p.m. as it is today. Upgrades to plumbing, and of course replacements and reconstruction of some of the redwood lath structures that are on the building, and reconstruction, as I mentioned, the stucco arcades on the south side. So this is just the image of the footprint of phase 1. So it's actually the building itself, as well as the ADA accessible pathway that connects this building to the Plaza de Panama. So phase 2 of the building is going to be run through a right of entry through the Conservancy, and phase 2 entails the reconstruction or reconstruction of the historic pergola, and the reconstruction and restoration of some of the interior and exterior gardens, the construction of the fountains within the building, and some restoration to the fountains in the plazas on the outside of the building. The upgrade to technology and infrastructure, so additional lighting and furniture and fixtures. So this just gives you an idea of the footprint of phase 2 of this project. So with that, the timeline, as I mentioned, the Conservancy donated the 60% construction documents to the city last year. And then in May of this year, the engineering group was able to release the request for qualifications, and they did receive multiple responses to that request for qualifications. So there are 3 teams that actually were pre-qualified for this particular project. And the request for proposals was actually released on Friday of last week. So we're looking forward to seeing the full proposals from the construction design build contractors. And we're looking at a date of about December 15th for the responses to that request for proposals. So the proposals will start to be evaluated as of mid-December. And with that, the notice to proceed will probably follow as soon as spring of 2021 or summer 2021. Once that notice to proceed is given, it'll be a 24-month design and construction timeline. And then phase 2 is meant to actually seamlessly follow phase 1 and also overlapped in some areas, because as you saw in the plan view images, there's some areas of phase 2 that do not overlap the footprint of phase 1. So we're hoping to be able to do some construction concurrently there. So as you know, phase 2, which will be done through a right of entry with the Conservancy, will be done with private funds. And as part of the capital campaign for the raising of those private funds, the Conservancy worked with Parks and Recreation and Historic Resources staff, as well as RSM Design, to put together a donor recognition or donor acknowledgement program back in 2017. So we worked with the city very closely on this and on alignment with what is currently in the park and what fits with the Department of Interior standards, as well as what's accepted now in the park. And this was approved through the Park and Rec Department in 2017. But we're currently in the process of expanding our donor acknowledgement to naming opportunities. And the city of San Diego actually put together a very precise and transparent process for naming city assets back in 2017. And that's the process that we're going through right now. So the naming opportunity will physically manifest in a similar way that the donor acknowledgements are manifested, with either plaques or inlaid lettering on the ground planes, or engraved lettering on the ground plane, or engraved plaques on vertical surfaces. So the naming opportunities that we're proposing right now, there's 13 naming opportunities. We brought this before the Balboa Park Committee, which is one of the first steps in this process that's outlined by the city. And we got some great feedback. And from that feedback, we eliminated one of the potential naming opportunities, which was the lily pond. So we're down to 13 naming opportunities. I'm going to run through these really quickly. So the first one is the Central Rotunda. You can see the outline of that on the plan view. The Welcome Gallery, the multi-purpose rooms on the north side, the north entry lobby, the west patio, the west and east wings of the Botanical Building Gardens, the newly reconstructed historic pergola, the potting shed area, the western and eastern plazas, and the western and eastern gardens. So just for those of you that haven't seen the actual city policy for naming city assets, it's policy number 900-20. And we started this process in November of this year. And we're working through the various steps, and we're looking forward to March of 2021, where we'll present this and hopefully be approved through the City Council. And with that, I will stop sharing screen and open it up to questions. Or send it back to Sarah, who will tell us what we're doing next. Sorry, Sarah.
All right, thanks so much, Jackie. There's so much exciting transformation happening in the park. And I think one of my key questions to all of you really had to do with how this contributes to a vision of the future Balboa Park, which I do think you've all really addressed incredibly well in the images you shared and the stories you've told. I think one thing that would be interesting to share with folks, because we're all at different phases of these projects and the planning, Has there been anything in particular that stood out as a key challenge or a unique opportunity through this process of creating a capital project and transformation in the park?
Who are
Raise
you
your hand
asking?
and unmute. Yeah, John.
Who are you asking? Okay, John.
Sure.
Well, this is probably the easiest one because with regard to the Balboa Park Carousel, everyone loves the magic that the Balboa Park Carousel represents. Everyone was a kid. Everyone loves shiny things, and everybody likes to. We would like to think that everyone likes to every once in a while get away from their smartphones, from their electronic devices, and experience something firsthand. The dynamicism of something that's historic, that's still moving, that's 110 years old and still going strong. So what we take away from it at Friends of Balboa Park is just how much passion and love there is for the Balboa Park Carousel, and certainly for Balboa Park, and the fact that the carousel is here in Balboa Park. And that has gone a long way towards helping us in our fundraising and instilling some inspiration and passion in the community.
Thanks, John.
Sarah, I'd love to jump in. I think what I would add is just that the collaboration, the collegiality, and the support among park organizations has been really valuable to us. And I mean, that includes Parks and Rec, clearly. We've I know connected and shared planning and vision with the Conservancy. John has directed us to some helpful resources. Just as I mentioned earlier, our co-tenants, the Globe and the Art Institute, have been so supportive. And there are a couple of aspects of our project that in turn support them, like a new freight elevator and a new HVAC system. So we've just felt such great support from all of the other organizations in the park and our museum colleagues. And I think that says a lot about San Diego and the way I think, we see in all these presentations that we are all moving forward in the same direction for this great new future for the park.
And Sarah, for us, I mean, the fact that it took how many years for the Palisades to begin to take some sort of a reflect what the precise master plan showed. But at least that Southern half, to the city's credit, they have started that, on their own. And I think that, along with Comic Con and along with our vision for Starlight, I think that entire south side of the park, the Palisades, is going to really begin to change. Because, John, where John is up there he just talked about the carousel, and then Jessica, the Mingei, they're right on the Plaza de Panama. But most people forget about, underneath the noisy flight path. And I think that's going to change. And I know there's a question related to that here coming up in a bit. But I'm pretty excited that finally, after I started working on the master plan in 1980, believe it or not, you know how long ago that was, 40 years ago. So it's been taking a long time to take effect. But the biggest catalyst I saw, at least at our end, is when the Palisade parking lot began to change into half of it as a plaza. That's going to be a big difference. Steve, you have anything to add?
Well, for me, the Palisades is a big thing. One of the things that I think Comic-Con's talking about is being open later. So now our park has kind of gotten to a thing where it's just not over during the day as far as institutions. I think things will be happening at night. I also do believe, I say we'll be where the cool kids play. I don't know if that's really right, but I do know there was a lot of things about the plane noise and Alan Zeider running, NTC. And I remember when he started that thing, I was going, oh, good luck. And that place before the pandemic was packed. And I'm telling you, part of that has to do with that. You've got to change your programming to what can work with plane noise, because there is plane noise, but it's not the end of the world. I was there for 10 years and we had music that played. We had a mariachi festival. You couldn't begin to tell there was a plane overhead during that. There's a lot of things we can do as far as programming and what we can do to mitigate what the planes do. And so I am really, really, really excited about what our future holds. I'm really excited about this meeting with Mara Elliott tomorrow. I'm really excited about how our volunteer staff has grown and grown, because we are a volunteer organization, and maybe somebody will see the vision and get behind it. We'll just see. But right now we're plugging along. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited.
Hey, thanks, Sarah. Next.
It's kind of interesting. Oh, when you think about all of these projects happening, and we are in the middle of COVID, but even Museum of Us transformation, I know the Museum of Art, Timken is doing some amazing things behind closed doors right now. There's so much actually happening behind the scenes in Balboa Park right now that on the surface, I know there's struggle and it's real quiet and there's not as much attendance, but this inspirational movement and these transformational projects are happening. And I think there's this common thread that we're all hearing and seeing, and is that we don't just want to, bring old Starlight back. We're re-envisioning the future of it. Same thing with Mingei, the Botanical Building project. Carousel's looking at the future and how it fits into the context of the visitor experience. This is all really inspiring for our city and our stakeholders. And I think being able to share these stories is important and compelling. And so I appreciate also the note of collaboration where everyone kind of mentioned another organization in their presentation and afterwards, that it really does take a village in this park and in this city. And I commend everyone on this panel for moving projects forward in that way. One thing that I think people are curious about is there anything in particular that's been an aha moment or a takeaway that you might share that other organizations or individuals thinking about this type of transformative work that you would, give as advice or as kind of like insider information?
It always costs more and takes longer.
No, Steve, come on, be positive. Come on, what's the aha moment?
Well, the aha moment was when the malaise of the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden we had the lady who runs the Chula Vista Amphitheater involved, people that ran the Balboa Civic, the Balboa and the Civic Theater have come back to us about ways we can go forward. There's many people overlooking Starlight and seeing what it could be, and don't get me wrong, we have to be quick on our feet, and who knows how long this will go on. And I think the idea of coming back to the old equation is great. That will happen at some point, but I intend to be ready to adjust and adapt to what's available right now. And I do think we can do that.
And Sarah, your point about inter-organization cooperation, I mean, that I have not sensed it to that degree until now. I mean, like you said, it takes a village, from not just inside Balboa Park, from the outside. There's so many people working together. Steve just mentioned several people wanting to help, and Jessica, you did too, and Jackie, of course, with the Botanical Building, and I mean, it's just there's not one group. We're all together as a family, and we can't do it alone. I mean, and that's, I think, what we have to take back. We have to help each other to make each of these happen.
Agreed.
I would definitely second that. The collaboration is so important. We've learned that with all of our projects. When we put together our steering committees, we say, okay, who else needs to be at the table? Who else needs to have a voice? We need to make sure everyone is involved so we can move this forward. I think I feel the collaboration tremendously right now in the park. And I don't know if it's just because of COVID or because of other unnamed projects or some other projects that didn't move forward that I won't name, but maybe we're all just at the point where enough is enough. We need to make this park better, no more failed attempts to improve the park. We're just going to do it. And I feel that energy with all of you and people that I talk to every day in the park.
Yay.
Yay, schmooze. Hey, John Bolthouse, here's to you. I've had a lot of people guide me in this. I'm kind of, a Yahoo from outside coming in. I can't tell you how many times anybody that was looking, maybe they didn't agree, but no matter what, I've had nothing but really positive support from a million people in different ways, from staff, from the city, and all you too. So thank you.
So Sarah, do you want to just go down the chat and ask a question so we can all respond to make sure? I hate to have somebody go away without having a question answered.
Yeah, I'll take a look. We tried, I know some of them were answered. One more note that I just wanted to pull from that. Steve, I think, says something really important, and this to me speaks to COVID and those changes, is the ability to pivot and adapt to the change that's coming our way. And I think that if we look back and as we proceed, that's going to be a key asset for any one of us trying to do work in this space and the flexibility that it requires. And so that was I really appreciate that point, Steve. That resonated for me.
We gotta be quick on our feet.
Yeah, and that can be hard. That can be hard to do. We're a long time organization and a very established park. Thank you, Justin,
but persistent.
email in the chat. I know there were some State of Starlight questions specific to plane. Is it one of them specific to plane noise that you want to address, Vicki?
Yeah, well, actually, Steve, I think Steve alluded to that, but you need a little bit more detail, Steve, on how the plane noise is not going to be a distraction.
Well, wait, the plane noise is a distraction. I'll tell you that right off. But to a point.
A negative distraction. Let me rephrase it.
Yeah, there you go. Because no, you'd be one of the things that, there is planes that go overhead, but just like I say for Alan down there at Liberty Station, you modify what you can do. You look at it and everybody has to, not that that's there. Can we do quiet drama there? Probably not with great effect, but there's so many other things that can happen there. And besides that, if you don't know, matter of fact, I'm working on 4 or 5 projects now in the park on audio video. That's what I do. There's ways to design the sound system to do better than it ever did before. I was there for 10 years. I know what we had. I know there's a lot of things that we can do right now that mitigate plane noise. I've already had musical things happen up front and no one notices the plane noise when I do it. But I'm trying to tell you also that if you sat there and said, okay, I'm going to do something specifically, and it's not something that addresses that plane noise as a problem, then you're being locked in the box. We do have to adjust what it is that we can do. I mean, I'm looking at circus. So circus, plane noise, not a big issue. If I'm going to do quiet drama, well, we have the old globe anyway. I mean, it's just, we have to look at what we can do right. But I can tell you, I have a punch list that's a mile long of what things we can do there. And the other thing is, I love Comic-Con coming in because I do know that at some point, we're going to get a different character here walking through the park. This is a person that really is not going to the park right now, but they will, based upon Comic-Con and hopefully with what we can bring to. We're going to open up culturally. We're going to open up a lot of different things. So I'm extremely excited about what we can do about plane noise.
So Steve, somebody had a question about when they walk down there, they hear all this kind of music coming through your speakers. They ask, what is that?
That's to keep all the people that want to sleep in the theater company. The purpose of that noise. Okay, I'm kidding.
It's not noise. It's not noise. Jeez.
Oh, it is. It's the Heliotrope Ragtime Orchestra. They actually play in the Balboa Park Club. I went there, bought the CD, and I said the world needs to hear this relentlessly, night and day in the theater to keep taggers. Now, I'll tell you something else. This is kind of off subject. We are paying armed security service to come in at night here at some point. We have a problem with taggers. That's an ongoing thing with what goes on in the park. I do believe it's kind of a hidden thing about intrusion and stuff like that. We have homeless coming in, but no matter what, that music does keep people from wanting to stay around and paint. You just can't paint.
Thanks,
Okay.
Steve.
There was one more question for us, I think, Steve, and that has to do with the size of the audience that's perceived.
Good call. Basically, I think as we go to this idea of terraces, we're going to be at a 25% load. So we're 4,200 seats, and so come down to about 1,000. Still 1,000 people, a lot more than you can do in a lot of other places. And that's what's so exciting about our particular situation, is that we can still have a fairly good size, attendance without being destroyed by the fact that we can't sit people right next to each other.
Thank you so much. Jackie, there's a couple outstanding questions on Botanical Building. If you could do one, Victoria asked how she could get involved to show support for the naming and recognition process.
Yes, so right now we're in the private part of the silent part of our capital campaign, but that will be launching. we're aligning it with the launch of the RFP. So in the next couple months, you'll be hearing a lot from the Conservancy. So you can definitely keep in touch with us, and we'll be sending out information. Sarah, I'll let you add to that a little bit too.
Sure. Yes, we'll be communicating with our donors, and we'll also send something out in a special newsletter. And many of you are subscribers already, so I will pitch. Please subscribe to our newsletter. It's on our website in the upper right-hand corner. And I know we have gone over today, but I just feel like the content was really, really engaging and critical. And I just appreciate the panelists for hanging in there and staying with us, and our guests. Really, really pleased to have you with us. We will happily answer questions offline. And I think we can probably send out, I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues, but we can send out some links and some emails to all of you for our panelists for follow-up if you wish. But I'm so grateful to be working with all of you in the park. I consider you my colleagues. The Balboa Park Conservancy is really dedicated to more conversations like this. And so when we find new opportunities, we'll pursue them. And to all of you that shared this evening with us, thank you for your ongoing support and advocacy and championing. We need you, and feel free to tell others about what you're hearing tonight, and to get other folks interested in what we're all doing. So thank you so much, and have an incredible holiday week, a safe one, and take care.